Parshat, Tzav, chapter 6. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Command Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the Torah of the burnt offering. The burnt offering shall remain on the hearth atop the altar all night until the morning, while the fire of the altar is kept burning on it. The Kohen is to put on his linen garment, with his linen undergarments upon his body. He is to remove the fat ashes from where the fire has consumed the burnt offering on the altar, and put them beside the altar. Then he is to take off his garments, put on other ones, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. The fire on the altar is to be kept burning on it. It must not go out. Each morning the Kohen is to burn wood on it, laying the burnt offering in order upon it, and burning up as smoke the fat of the fellowship offerings. Fire is to be kept burning on the altar continually. It must not go out. Now this is the Torah of the grain offering. Aaron's sons are to offer it to Adonai in front of the altar. So he is to lift up from it a handful of the fine flour of the grain offering, with some of its oil and all the frankincense which is on the grain offering, and burn it up as smoke on the altar for a soothing aroma, as its memorial portion to Adonai. Then what is left from it, Aaron and his sons are to eat. It is to be eaten as matzah in a holy place, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. It must not be baked with hametz. I have given it as their portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and like the trespass offering. Every male among the children of Aaron may eat it, as their portion forever throughout your generations from the offerings of fire to Adonai. Whoever touches them will become holy. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, This is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they are to offer to Adonai on the day when he is anointed. The 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a continual grain offering, half of it in the morning, half of it in the evening. It is to be made with oil on a pan. When it is soaked, you shall bring it in. You are to present the grain offering in baked pieces as a soothing aroma to Adonai. The anointed Kohen, who will be in his place from among his sons, is to offer it. As an eternal statute, it must be entirely burned up as smoke to Adonai. Thus every grain offering of a Kohen is to be a whole offering. It shall not be eaten. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, This is the Torah of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered, the sin offering is to be slaughtered before Adonai. It is most holy. The Kohen who offers it for sin shall eat it. It must be eaten in the holy place in the court of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches its flesh will be holy. When any of its blood is splattered on the garment, you are to wash it in a holy place, but the earthen vessel in which it is boiled shall be broken, and if it is boiled in a bronze vessel, it shall be scoured and rinsed in water. Every male among the Kohanim is to eat of it. It is most holy. But no sin offering, from which any of the blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place, is to be eaten. It must be burned up with fire. Chapter 7. This is the Torah of the trespass offering. It is most holy. In the place where they slaughter the burnt offering, he is to slaughter the trespass offering, and he is to splash its blood around on the altar. He shall offer all of its fat, the fat tail and the fat that covers the innards, along with the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them, which is by the loins, plus the cover on the liver that he is to remove with the kidneys. Then the Kohen shall burn them up as smoke on the altar for an offering made by fire to Adonai. It is a trespass offering. Every male among the Kohanim may eat it. It is to be eaten in a holy place. It is most holy. As is the sin offering, so is the trespass offering. There is one Torah for them. They are for the Kohen who makes atonement with them. The Kohen who offers anyone's burnt offering, the Kohen is to have for himself the hide of the burnt offering with which he is offered. Every meal offering that is baked in the oven, and all that is prepared on the flat plate and on the pan, is to belong to the Kohen who offers it. Every grain offering, whether mixed with oil or dry, belongs to the sons of Aaron equally. Now this is the Torah of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings, which may be offered to Adonai. If he brings it for thanksgiving, then he is to present with the sacrifice of thanksgiving matzah cakes mixed with oil, matzah wafers anointed with oil, and fine flour cakes mixed with oil. He is to present his offering with the sacrifice of his fellowship offerings for thanksgiving, along with cakes of bread with hametz. From each he is to offer one out of every offering as a gift to Adonai. It will belong to the Kohen who sprinkles the blood of the fellowship offerings. The meat of the sacrifice of his fellowship offerings for thanksgiving is to be eaten on the day of his offering. He is not to leave any of it until the morning. But if the sacrifice of his offering is a vow or freewill offering, it is to be eaten on the day that he offers his sacrifice. On the next day, what remains of it may be eaten. But what remains of the meat of the sacrifice on the third day shall be burned up with fire. If any of the meat of the sacrifice of his fellowship offerings is eaten upon the third day, it will not be accepted, nor will it be credited to him who offers it. It becomes a foul thing, and the soul who eats any from it will bear his own iniquity. The meat that touches any unclean thing is not to be eaten. It is to be burned up with fire. As for the meat, everyone who is clean may eat it, but the soul who eats of the meat of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings belonging to Adonai, having his uncleanness on him, that soul shall be cut off from his people. If anyone touches any unclean thing, whether the uncleanness of man, or an unclean animal, or any unclean detestable thing, and eats some of the meat of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings belonging to Adonai, that soul is to be cut off from his people. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, saying, You are to eat no fat of a bull or sheep or goat. The fat of a dead animal and the fat of a torn animal may be used for any other service, but you must not eat it. For if anyone eats the fat of the animal from which an offering is made by fire to Adonai, then the soul who eats it is to be cut off from his people. You are not to eat any blood, whether it is from a bird or animal, in any of your dwellings. Whoever it is who consumes any blood, that soul is cut off from his people. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, say, Whoever brings a sacrifice of his fellowship offerings to Adonai is to present his offering to Adonai out of the sacrifice of his fellowship offerings. With his own hands he is to bring Adonai's offerings by fire. He is to present the fat with the breast, so that the breast may be waved for a wave offering before Adonai. The Kohen is to burn up the fat as smoke on the altar, but the breast will belong to Aaron and his sons. The right thigh you are to give to the Kohen for a contribution out of the sacrifices of your fellowship offerings. The one among Aaron's sons who offers the blood of the fellowship offerings and the fat is to have the right thigh for a portion. For the breast of the wave offering and the thigh contribution I have taken from Bnei Israel out of the sacrifices of their fellowship offerings, and have given them to Aaron the Kohen and to his sons as their portion forever from Bnei Israel. This is the anointed portion of Aaron and the anointed portion of his sons out of the offerings of Adonai made by fire, on the day when he presents them to serve Adonai in the office of Kohen. Adonai commanded these to be given to them from Bnei Israel on the day he anointed them. It is their portion forever throughout their generations. This is the Torah of the burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, the trespass offering, the ordination offering, and the sacrifice of fellowship offerings, which Adonai commanded Moses at Mount Sinai. On the day he commanded Bnei Israel to present their offerings to Adonai in the wilderness of Sinai. Chapter 8. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Take Aaron and his sons with him, the garments, the anointing oil, the bowl of the sin offering, the 2 rams, and the basket of matzah. Then assemble all the congregation at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So Moses did as Adonai commanded him. And when the congregation was assembled at the entrance of the tent of meeting, Moses said to the congregation, This is what Adonai has commanded to be done. Moses brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. He put the tunic on Aaron, tied the sash on him, clothed him with the robe, put the ephod on him, and tied the skillfully decorated sash of the ephod around him, and fastened it on him. He then placed the breastplate on Aaron, and inside the breastplate he put the Urim and Thummim. Then he set the turban on his head, and on front of the turban he set the golden plate, the holy crown, just as Adonai commanded Moses. Moses took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and all that was in it, and so consecrated them. He sprinkled the oil on the altar 7 times, and anointed the altar and all its utensils, the basin with its stand, to consecrate them. He poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head and anointed him to consecrate him. Then Moses brought Aaron's sons and clothed them with tunics, tied sashes on them, and fastened headbands on them, as Adonai had commanded Moses. Then he brought the bull of the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the bull of the sin offering. Moses then slaughtered it, took the bull and dabbed it onto the horns of the altar with his finger, and so purified the altar. Then he poured out the blood at the base of the altar and consecrated it to make atonement for it. He then took all the fat that was on the innards, the cover of the liver, and the 2 kidneys and their fat, and burned it up as smoke on the altar. But the bull and its hide, its flesh and its dung, he burned with fire outside the camp, as Adonai had commanded. He then presented the ram of the burnt offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram. Then Moses slaughtered it and splashed the blood around on the altar. After he cut the ram into pieces, Moses burned the head, the pieces, and the fat. He washed the innards and the legs with water. Then Moses burned the whole ram up in smoke on the altar. It was a burnt offering for a soothing aroma, an offering made by fire to Adonai, as Adonai had commanded Moses. Then he presented the second ram, the ram of ordination, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram. Moses slaughtered it, took some of its blood, and put it on the tip of Aaron's right ear, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the great toe of his right foot. Then Moses brought Aaron's sons, and put some of the blood on the tips of their right ears, on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the great toes of their right feet. Then Moses splashed the blood around on the altar. He took the fat tail, and all the fat that was on the innards, as well as the cover of the liver, the 2 kidneys with their fat, and the right thigh. Then out of the basket of matzah that was before Adonai, he took 1 matzah cake, 1 cake of oiled bread, and 1 wafer, and placed them on the fat and on the right thigh. He put all these in Aaron's hands and in the hands of his sons, and waved them for a wave offering before Adonai. Then Moses took them from their hands and burned them up in smoke on the altar with the burnt offering. They were a consecration for a soothing aroma. It was an offering made by fire to Adonai. Moses took the breast and waved it for a wave offering before Adonai. It was Moses' portion of the ram of ordination, just as Adonai commanded Moses. Then Moses took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood which was on the altar and sprinkled it on Aaron, on his garments, and on his sons, and on his sons' garments with him. So he consecrated Aaron, his garments, his sons, and his sons' garments with him. Moses then said to Aaron and his sons, "Boil the meat at the entrance of the tent of meeting and eat it there, along with the bread that is in the basket of ordination, as I commanded, saying, Aaron and his sons are to eat it. What remains of the meat and of the bread you shall burn with fire. You are not to go out from the entrance of the tent of meeting for 7 days, until the days of your ordination are fulfilled, for he will be filling your hands for 7 days. What has been done this day, Adonai has commanded to be done, in order to make atonement for you. You are to stay at the entrance of the tent of meeting, day and night, for 7 days, and keep Adonai's command, so that you do not die, for so I have been commanded." Thus Aaron and his sons did all the things that Adonai commanded through Moses.